One key component of investing in commercial real estate is looking at single tenant versus multi-tenant buildings. Doesn't matter what property type you're talking about, typically you can boil each one down to, do you have a single tenant or do you have multi-tenant? Now, I would suggest that there are pros and cons to both. The pros of having a single tenant building is you have one point of contact, one occupant in the building. Typically the management of them is significantly easier. They can often self-manage the property themselves. The biggest con associated with a single tenant property is that if that one tenant leaves, there goes all of your cash flow. So that can be really painful if you don't have a plan in place to deal with that. Switching gears to a multi-tenant building, the pros of multi-tenant is that your risk is usually spread out a little bit. You have multiple tenants, typically occupying different varying size floor plates within your building, so that your cash flow is a little more predictable, I would argue. And if one of your tenants leaves, then you can at least hedge for that lost cash flow in a way that doesn't completely, call it, bankrupt your asset. I mean, I've seen that happen too many times where investors don't necessarily have the wherewithal to deal with a single tenant leaving, and it really forces them to sell the asset, give it back to the bank, whatever it may be. Multi-tenant buildings allow you to hedge for that. The cons of having a multi-tenant building is really the management. There's a lot more intensive on-site or even off-site discussions with the tenants, more tenant issues, more rent collections, and really at the end of the day, just more hands-on involvement in a multi-tenant investment. Usually you need to hire property management, that costs money. You know, again, there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer. I've owned multi-tenant and single-tenant properties. Again, I think there's pros and cons to both. But deciding what you like more and really what fits your risk profile, I think is the key to making that decision. But ultimately, it comes down to, do you like the deal or not, right? Single or multi-tenant. I don't discriminate against either. Like I said, I own both. So figure out what you like, what you don't like, and then make your choices accordingly. Thanks for watching.